Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 3rd, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see the big ridge of high pressure out here across the Pacific Ocean. This is going to dominate our weather for the next few days, warm us up quite nicely as we go through the week. A bit of a thermal trough moving up the coastline. We're going to have some nice warm temperatures, some offshore flow all the way out to the coastal areas, but don't get too used to it because we're going to develop another deep trough across the Gulf of Alaska and start pointing the storm track back at the Pacific Northwest as we go through next week. We'll go through those details as we go through the video here this morning. Taking a look at SeaTac, 0.45 of an inch there, probably going to end up with about a half an inch from this system, 9 degrees below average, but a nice little rainfall maker coming through there, and we are going to warm up here above average as we go towards the end of the week. We'll look at those temperatures in a moment. Spokane National Weather Service warming and drying trend as we go towards the end of the week here, and then next week they're also highlighting this return to cool and breezy conditions, and you're definitely going to feel the change with the temperatures as we go on into next week. Winter weather advisory, some of the higher terrain off across some of southwest Montana out towards Yellowstone. So if you're off in the backcountry there, hiking, wildlife viewing there, and if you're really high up there above 7,500 feet, you may be getting some snow. So heads up for that across some of the backcountry as this system pushes off to the southeast. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station to watch all this crazy weather we get here across the Pacific Northwest, click on that link down below. It's much more fun to watch weather when you've got a weather station attached to your home. This is looking at the NAM 3KM, hot off the presses here, and this is the system moving through yesterday. You can see the precipitation continuing to move on towards the southeastern. There's some heavier precip showing up here across some of eastern Idaho and southwest Montana. Could get a thunderstorm or two with that, but that should be moving out of our area here as we go on in through Wednesday and Thursday, and you can see the Pacific Northwest is going to dry out quite nicely here as we go through the end of this week and into the early portion of the weekend. Now, looking at that, the GFS 12Z, it got a little bit of a late start today on my briefing, but the good news is that we get to look at the 12Z GFS in full, and you can see that system pushing off to the southeast. Ridge builds across the area. We're going to warm up quite nicely, and we're probably going to avoid fog with that offshore flow once we get towards Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, as we've got some thermal trough activity going on out there. And it's going to get warm all the way out towards the coastline. I'll show you some of these temperatures here in a moment, but look at the return of the Gulf of Alaska low, and it's going to start pointing systems back into the Pacific Northwest by the time we go towards Sunday, kind of a transition day here, and then we're really going to start to cool down as we go through next week. As you can see, maybe a few impulses moving through here as we go on in towards next week. More on that here in a moment as well. Here's looking at last night's European run here. There goes our system pushing off to the east. Big ridge builds here and warms us up nicely, but it doesn't last long as we have the system right at the end of the run, 144 hours. Last night's European model run here, deep trough over the Gulf of Alaska starting to show up here. So yeah, definitely a pattern change coming, and it kind of reflects in the temperatures here as you can see us warm up quite nicely Friday, Saturday for Seattle, and then the drop back down to some slightly below normal temperatures and some rainfall, maybe some breezy conditions. Looking at the GFS hot off the presses, as I mentioned, you can see what I want to show you is this ridge here of high pressure, and you can kind of see the thermal trough moving up the coastline here with the offshore winds, especially as going towards Thursday morning. You're going to notice those offshore winds, and that's going to warm us up all the way up to the coastline. Check it out when I show you some of these temperatures here in a moment. But first, let's look at 850 millibars here. You can kind of see that system as it pushes off to the south and east. Got the ridge of high pressure over the top of the area, offshore winds. Look at really warm up above average here as we go on in through Friday morning. Some nice days incoming, but like I said, don't get used to it. Check out the storm systems moving back into the area and much cooler temperatures expected as we go on to the early and mid portions of next week. Mean sea level pressure. So the main takeaway of this is kind of showing you what a thermal trough is. You can see it creeping up the coastline there, and it's just kind of an area of relatively lower pressure as you get high pressure moving across some of the interior here. Of course, that wants to flow out across the terrain through the gaps and all the way out to the coastal areas here. Of course, it wants to flow from high to low. So that's what a thermal trough is there, just kind of the resultant low pressure up the coastline here, all the way up towards western Washington. This is Hoquiam. Check it out, even out to the beaches. You're going to get some nice temperatures. Look at this, Friday, 76. Get out there and enjoy that. It may be the last warm temperatures for a while along the coastline. And look at Tillamook, Oregon. Could get up into the 80s on Friday before the pattern change starts rolling in here. Take that with a grain of salt, way far off into October. We'll worry about that as we get a little bit closer to it. Spokane, nice warm up coming here through Sunday. Then the pattern change starts showing its face here as we get into the mid portion of next week. Seattle, Tacoma, look at some of these ensemble runs up over an inch, and the control had 1.2 inches as well well with this initial system rolling in here as we go through the day Monday. Interesting stuff with the return of the storm track. Bellingham, no exception there. You can kind of see the ridging over the area, but the control had 1.6 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. Portland is going to get some rainfall, it looks like, too, and the control and the mean are getting up towards 3/4 of an inch towards an inch. As we look off into early next week, Stampede Pass, Washington Cascades, of course, you can expect rainfall up there and a pattern change as well. Crater Lake, even getting some precipitation across some of southwest Oregon, could reach Northern California also. So yeah, definitely going to turn the storm track back on into the Pacific Northwest here. Here's the European, actually showing some pretty good amounts as well. Pretty good agreement there with the GFS. And look at that ridging. We do have some nice days before we have to worry about this rainfall rolling in as we go through the day Monday, most likely. Snohomish County, Payne Field, Everett up there. You can see the control had up over an inch for the 24-hour period there. Also, look at Tillamook. Nice precipitation total showing up there. The control actually had 2 inches. We'll check this out day by day and just kind of make sure what's coming here. But you can see the nice stretch of weather here coming before we have to worry about that. Looking at last night's European run, you can see that system moving off, kind of a weak impulse moving across, and you can see us really dry out as we go through Friday, Saturday. But of course, you can see the next frontal system kind of shaping up out there towards the end of the run. Look at this deep low pressure system out over the Pacific Ocean here, trying to bring some moisture back into the area by the time we go towards Sunday night. Here's Seattle-Tacoma, purely fantasy windstorm. You can see just a few breezy solutions in here, except one. Look at that, had like a 60-plus mile-per-hour gust here in ensemble member number 33. So, of course, we have to look at it. I click on 33 there, and we scroll through here, and you can see the parent low swinging up towards southeast Alaska, and then look at that fairly deep low pressure center move right into Vancouver Island, northwest tip of Washington, and that would be a pretty big blast here for Western Washington. This is just entertainment purposes, just kind of one of the many solutions that could happen. We're not expecting a big windstorm as of right now. As you can see, only one ensemble member even had that, so chances are probably less than 1% of something like this actually occurring at this point in time. So it's something we'll watch over the next few days, and if confidence does increase, of course, you'll hear about it here first on the channel. Quileute Airport, check it out though. Northwest Washington actually showing some pretty good gusts in here. Gusts getting up over 45 miles per hour as well along some of the Northwest Washington coastline, which include Vancouver and whatnot. And this could extend further south. We'll see how it trends over the next couple of days. But look at some of these wind speeds kind of low here as we have this ridge of high pressure over the top of us. Here's Astoria, blustery conditions possible too, and we'll see how this trends over the next few days. Here we go at the GFS, hot off the presses. There goes the system pushing off to the southeast, and we start to dry out here, ridge of high pressure over the top of us. But of course, that frontal system not that far away. Look at that deep low, 970 millibars just off of Haida Gwaii there by the time we go towards Sunday. So that precipitation is definitely going to be moving in on the day, probably even maybe Saturday night into portions of western BC, Vancouver Island. Then by the time you get to Sunday night here, GFS starts bringing precipitation down across western Washington. Pretty juicy precipitation signal there, even an atmospheric river looking feature here as well. We'll take a look at that in more detail as we get a bit closer. Then you can kind of see additional systems potentially trying to get in here, but we'll worry about those one at a time. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook through October 12th here, much of the west above average, but you can see here that precipitation outlook here through October 12th, the return of the storm track into the west coast, the northwest coast here. And looking at the European as of yesterday afternoon, let's look at total precipitation in inches. This is kind of wrapping up here from what yesterday's system is. So we're a little bit bumped up. This has already fallen. Put this into motion here, and you can kind of see these systems moving through here as we go on in through mid-October. So yeah, we could be pretty wet here along some of the western areas. You can see the rain shadowing effect for eastern Washington, Oregon, but of course the higher terrain across Idaho, the Blue Mountains, for example, northeast Washington and eastern British Columbia tend to do a little bit better here, and a little bit of rain shadowing maybe to the northeast of the Olympics with these systems rolling in here. But yeah, just kind of showing you guys the pattern change as we go through mid-October coming up potentially. This is the GFS, hot off the presses, total precipitation in inches. Here we go on in through Sunday night, starting to bring some of that precip into the area. And this is actually the ensemble mean. So this is all 30 GFS ensemble means averaged out here. So pretty good agreement that we're going to start getting wet here, western Washington, Oregon. So kind of interesting. We had a pretty good few systems moving through there. Now we're going to warm up quite nicely and bring the storm train back into the area. So anyway, yeah, and if you guys watching the channel here, if you're looking for the California videos, it's going to be switching over. There's a completely different channel, California Weather Watch. It's associated with this account. Nothing's going to change with the daily briefings. I will just be putting the videos over onto that channel here, but I will put them both on this channel here for the next few weeks here, just so nobody gets left out. I'm sure people will be wondering where the videos went once I cut it off, no matter when I do it here. But I'll put them both on this channel for a while. I'll just try to mention that all the California videos will be on the other channel after about a few weeks here or so. So anyway, yeah, I hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. You guys make this channel possible. Hope we can keep this going. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.